Hello, my name is Felicity Chun. I'm from the Model Evaluation Diagnostics team. This is a short video to outline some debugging in ESMValTool of recipes that were not run successfully. So these are the files we'll be looking at, a refresher on the config files and just some of the settings we'll be using, and then we'll find some log files from the output and where to find them in the folders. So in the config files, we'll just open that up. We'll start back at the top. First one's output directory, so you know where to find your output, and also check if there's enough space there for your output. Another one that would be relevant or that can be used a lot is the remove preprocessing directory. So if the run's successful and it'll remove this folder, if it's unsuccessful you'll see it's still there. That's the default true option. You can set it as false to keep the folders when the run's successful, and then you can also check or use those preprocessed files. Another one here is a config developer file is set to null to use the default one. You can define your own and customize it as well, and we can look at that in a second. We'll come down to this root path, and this is what it uses to look. These are the folders it's looking for the data, and split by project here, so it's worth checking that you have access to these folders and the data that you're looking for is in this folder. The DRS setting is that we'll look in the developer file, sets the folder structures to find the data. So if we open up developer, config developer, take CMIP6 as an example, we had it set to NCI, so this will be the folder structure to find those model data, and the input file naming convention that it'll use, and the output file is just what it'll be renamed once it's been pre-processed in the output folder. So we'll start looking at these main debug log files that we'll find in the outputs. The main log debug is just a more extensive version of the main log. It has the debug messages as well, so we barely need to use or read those. Let's switch to an example. And back here we'll look at, just a refresher, this one was run successfully, so we'll see all the folders as expected, and because I set when I ran this it was set to false to remove the pre-processing directory, so it has kept this. Then in the run folder is where we find the log files, so here we can see the main log, and this is the output into the console when it's run, when the tool is run, and it's a lot to read, but it's printing the messages as it's running. Mainly scroll down to the bottom, you'll see run is successful, and that's what you want to see. Just a refresher on the recipe will show you that these diagnostics names are used in the run folder and the pre-processing folder. So this will show for this diagnostic it'll have the pre-processing data, and we can see in the variable there's your pre-processed data for that variable. And we'll come back and look at these diagnostic run folders as well. Let's have a look at an example where the recipe couldn't find the data. In this check one, it goes straight to the run folder, so we can open the main log text that we've been talking about. We can see this is down the bottom. We can start seeing error messages popping up. We'll see this one, missing data, and what data is missing. We scroll up some more, we can see no input files found, so what it was using to find the data. And also here you can see how it's been where it's been looking for the data and the file name it was looking for. So all those things to check if we're not finding data. You can see here that I've added in a folder in the config for this run to look in some other folders as well. So it's added that in. Let's look at another example. Minimizing that, we can have a look at this one. We can see the pre-processing folder was created, so it started doing pre-processing. So we'll go into the run folder, go to this main log text file, and yeah, as it is hard to read, so there is a lot there, we can go down to the bottom and see where it's failed. You'll get a error message, like a lot of Python scripts, and we can see the traceback from the failed run. But for now we can scroll up and see the error messages it was giving. We can see here it pretty much says it couldn't concatenate the data, and it also gives you a representation of the cubes it was looking at and the original files that it used to create the cube. So these are the things that we can check to see what's going on here. Because it has started pre-processing, we can see some of the data has been fine and it's been able to concatenate and create other data sets. We'll look at another example here. This one will go straight to the run folder and the main log file. And we can see this is down the bottom of the file. What this is showing is, well, we've seen that it's found input files and then it does this search, and we've got the trace back here, and down here it does say it's failed to search. So this one was run on a queue that didn't have internet access, and you can see it's failing to search for the data online. So it's a common one that you may come across when looking for data. Okay, so far these examples have been failing at or before the pre-processing stage. So if we take a look at this example, it's passed pre-processing and has started doing the scripts. If we can have a look at this main log file as well, and we can see that it's getting an error message. It prints out the traceback as well, but you can also see a diagnostic error and the script, and then it also points you to another log file. So you can see it started running a script and it's created a log file for that script. So we can have a look at that one. As a reminder, we can have a quick look at this recipe. We'll see that there's only one diagnostic, and that's the folder name here it's used, and there's only one variable. So it's pulled that one variable for the two data sets. And for scripts, it's used the script name here So if you can have multiple scripts in a diagnostic, and it will create more folders. Let's have a look at the log file of this script and we can figure out what's going on. You can see at the top it'll print out the input into the script and then print out the logs, and then we can see the error message down the bottom, and it's just like debugging Python scripts. You'll get a trace back, you'll see the error message, and the line and script it was failing in. So here I've copied across the diagnostic script, and we can just take a look and see what it's doing. It's pretty much saying that the data doesn't fit into this script. Some other things we can look at is this website and the documentation for the recipes. So let's have a look at this here, which you would use when you're looking for an existing recipe to run. It's in the ESMValTool documentation, available recipes. We can have a look at the one, for example, that was successful at the beginning of this video. This will give you an overview of the recipe, so we have an idea of what it's doing. Of course, the recipe itself and the diagnostic script, which you can find in the recipe, as well as variables. So it's worth checking that you have all these variables in the data sets you want to use. Any other information, so this one also has some other reformatting scripts used before we run the recipe. Another thing you can be looking at is the source code. So there is two under ESMVal group, ESMVal Core and ESMValTool. So ESMValTool uses ESMVal Core, therefore you could look at both. So for example, let's have a look at another output. We'll minimize this. Let's have a look at this one. So the main log file again, we'll start there. We can come down to where it's failed and the trace back messages. And we can see it's failing on an ESMVal Core preprocessor function. And we can trace what it's been doing. So if we need to have a look at what that function is, what it's doing, we can go to the source code and have a look. So let's switch to the browser. And yeah, go back to the course. So this is often easier to look and use. We'll start back here. Than the installed version on Guardi. So just note the version you're using, as it could be slightly different. And what we were seeing was the ESMVal Core preprocessor I/O, and you can have a look at the function here. So we were getting some sort cubes by time function, and the time coordinate doesn't exist. So it's sometimes useful to look at some of the functions that it's using. So just as a reminder, we looked at some log files in this video. We found and checked some missing data and what that can look like in the outputs, and using the pre-processing folder as well. Then we can also look at the output run log, so that's from the diagnostic scripts, checking recipe documentation and the source code as well. As always, we're here to help. reach out for any support and suggestions. I'll see you next time. Thank you.